Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I want to talk to you about something that might seem counterintuitive at first, but I promise you, it's one of the most powerful principles you can apply in your life. Our topic today is be silent. You will get everything in life. Now, you might be thinking, Jim, how can being silent get me everything? Isn't success all about speaking up, making noise, and getting noticed? Well, let me tell you, there's a profound wisdom in silence that most people overlook. And that's what we're going to explore today. You see, in our noisy world, silence has become a rare commodity. Everyone's talking, shouting, trying to be heard above the crowd. But the truly successful people, the ones who achieve greatness in their lives, they've learned the art of strategic silence. Let's start with a simple truth. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Now, why do you think that is? It's because you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. But most people have it backwards. They're always talking, always expressing their opinions, always trying to prove how smart they are. And in doing so, they miss out on the wealth of knowledge and opportunities that come from simply being silent and listening. Silence isn't just about not talking. It's about being fully present, fully engaged, and fully receptive. It's about creating space in your life for wisdom to enter. It's about tuning in to the subtle signals that the universe is constantly sending you. Think about it this way. When you're always talking, always busy, always making noise, you're like a radio that's constantly broadcasting. But here's the thing. You can't receive when you're always transmitting. To receive the messages, the insights, the opportunities that life is trying to send you, you need to stop broadcasting and start listening. Now, I'm not saying you should never speak. Communication is important, of course. But what I'm saying is that you need to be strategic about when you speak and when you remain silent. You need to understand the power of the pause, the strength in stillness. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been in a negotiation where the other person makes an offer and instead of immediately countering, you just sit there in silence? It's amazing what happens. More often than not, they'll start talking again, maybe even improving their offer. Why? Because most people are uncomfortable with silence. They feel compelled to fill it, but the person who can sit comfortably in silence, they're the one with the power. This principle applies in so many areas of life, in your relationships, in your career, in your personal growth. When you're silent, you create space for others to reveal themselves. You allow situations to unfold naturally. You give yourself time to think, to process, to make better decisions. Now let's talk about how silence can help you in your personal development. You see, personal growth doesn't happen in the noise. It happens in the quiet moments of reflection. It's in those silent moments when you're alone with your thoughts that you can really examine your life, your goals, your values. Most people never take the time to do this. They're so busy running around, so caught up in the day-to-day noise of life that they never step back and ask themselves the big questions. Questions like, am I on the right path? Am I living up to my potential? What do I really want out of life? These are not questions you can answer in the midst of chaos and noise. They require silence. They require deep thought and introspection. And here's the thing. If you don't take the time to ask and answer these questions, you'll end up living someone else's life instead of your own. Silence gives you the opportunity to hear your own inner voice, your own wisdom. It's in those quiet moments that your true desires and aspirations can bubble up to the surface. It's in silence that you can connect with your authentic self. And let me tell you, when you're aligned with your authentic self, when you're clear about who you are and what you want, that's when the magic happens. That's when opportunities start to appear, when doors start to open, when life starts to flow in your favor. But it all starts with silence. It all starts with being willing to turn off the noise, to disconnect from the constant chatter of the world, and to listen to the whispers of your own heart and soul. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but Jim, I'm too busy for silence. I have too much to do, too many responsibilities. And I understand that. We all have busy lives, but here's what I want you to consider. Silence isn't something you find, it's something you create. You don't need hours of uninterrupted solitude, although that can be wonderful if you can get it. You can start with just a few minutes each day. Maybe it's first thing in the morning before the rest of the house wakes up. Maybe it's on your lunch break. Maybe it's right before you go to bed at night. The important thing is to make it a habit, to carve out that time for silence and reflection every single day. Because here's the truth. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. And I promise you, if you make silence a daily habit, if you consistently take time to turn inward and listen, you'll start to see changes in your life. You'll become more centered, more focused. You'll make better decisions. You'll become more in tune with your true desires and values. But it goes beyond just personal benefits. When you cultivate silence in your life, you become a more powerful presence in the world. You've heard the saying, still waters run deep, right? Well, it's true. There's a depth, a gravitas that comes from someone who knows how to be silent. Think about the people you respect most in your life. I bet they're not the loudest ones in the room. I bet they're not the ones always fighting to get a word in edgewise. No, the truly impressive people, the ones who command respect, they're often the quiet ones. The ones who speak less but say more. The ones who listen intently and speak thoughtfully. That's the power of silence. It gives weight to your words. When you're not always talking, when you choose your moments to speak carefully, people pay attention when you do open your mouth. Your words carry more impact, more influence. And isn't that what we all want? To have impact, to make a difference, to influence the world around us in a positive way? Well, I'm telling you, the path to that kind of influence starts with silence. Now, let's talk about how silence can help you in your relationships. You see, most people think that communication is all about talking, but the truth is, the most important part of communication is listening. And not just hearing the words, but really listening. Listening with your full attention, with empathy, with a genuine desire to understand. When you learn to be silent, to truly listen, you'll be amazed at how your relationships improve. People will feel heard. They'll feel understood. They'll open up to you in ways they never have before. You'll develop deeper connections, more meaningful relationships. And here's a little secret. People love good listeners. They're drawn to them. If you want to be popular, if you want to be liked and respected, don't try to be the life of the party. Instead, be the person who listens, who shows genuine interest in others. That's far more attractive than being the loudest voice in the room. But it's not just about your relationships with others. Silence also helps you develop a better relationship with yourself. In our noisy, busy world, many of us have lost touch with our inner selves. We're so caught up in the external noise that we've forgotten how to listen to our own hearts, our own intuition. Silence gives you the opportunity to reconnect with yourself, to check in with your feelings, your thoughts, your dreams. It gives you the space to process your experiences, to learn from them, to grow. And let me tell you, when you're in tune with yourself, when you're clear about who you are and what you want, life becomes so much easier. Decision-making becomes simpler because you know what aligns with your values and what doesn't. You become more confident because you're living authentically, not trying to be someone you're not. Now let's talk about how silence can help you in your career or business. You see, in the business world, there's a lot of emphasis on being assertive, on speaking up, on selling yourself. And those things have their place, of course. But there's also immense value in knowing when to be silent. Think about negotiations, for example. The person who's always talking, always trying to justify their position, they're often the weaker party. The stronger negotiator is the one who can sit comfortably in silence, who can let the other person talk themselves into a corner. Or think about problem solving. When faced with a challenge, most people rush to offer solutions right away. But often, the best approach is to sit with the problem for a while, to be silent, to think deeply, to let your subconscious mind work on it. That's often where the most innovative solutions come from. In leadership, too, silence is a powerful tool. A leader who listens more than they speak who takes the time to understand before acting, that's a leader people want to follow. They inspire confidence because they're not reacting impulsively. They're responding thoughtfully. But perhaps the most important benefit of silence in your career or business is that it gives you time to think strategically. In the noise and busyness of day-to-day operations, it's easy to lose sight of the big picture. But when you make time for silence, for reflection, you can step back and look at things from a higher perspective. You can ask yourself important questions. Am I giving in the right direction? Are my actions aligned with my long-term goals? What opportunities am I missing? What threats should I be preparing for? These are the kinds of questions that can make or break your success. But you can't answer them in the midst of noise and chaos. You need silence. You need time for deep thought and reflection. Now, I want to address something that might be coming up for some of you. You might be thinking, Jim, this all sounds great, but I'm an extrovert. I get my energy from being around people, from talking and interacting. How can silence work for me? Well, let me tell you, being silent doesn't mean being a hermit. It doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It simply means creating space in your life for quiet reflection. And trust me, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you need this. In fact, if you're an extrovert, you might need it even more because you're naturally inclined to seek out interaction and stimulation. You might be neglecting this crucial aspect of personal growth. By intentionally creating moments of silence in your life, you're giving yourself the gift of balance. And here's the thing. When you do emerge from your moments of silence, when you do engage with the world, you'll find that you have more to offer. You'll be more grounded, more centered, more in touch with yourself. Your interactions will be richer, more meaningful. Now let's talk about how silence can help you tap into your creativity. You see, creativity doesn't come from noise and chaos. It comes from stillness. It comes from giving your mind the space to wander, to make new connections, to see things from different perspectives. Think about it. When do your best ideas come to you? Is it when you're in a noisy, crowded place with 1,000 things competing for your attention? Or is it when you're in the shower, or out for a quiet walk, or lying in bed at night? For most people, those moments of insight, those flashes of inspiration, they come in the quiet moments. They come when the mind is free to roam, when it's not constrained by the noise and demands of the external world. By cultivating silence in your life, you're creating more opportunities for these creative insights to emerge. You're giving your mind the freedom to play, to explore, to come up with new ideas and solutions. And in today's world, creativity is more valuable than ever. The ability to come up with innovative ideas, to solve problems in new ways, to see opportunities where others see obstacles. These are the skills that will set you apart, that will lead to success in any field. But creativity isn't just about coming up with new ideas. It's also about having the clarity to recognize good ideas when they come and the focus to turn those ideas into reality. And guess what helps with clarity and focus? That's right, silence. When you're constantly bombarded with noise and information, it's hard to distinguish between what's important and what's not. It's hard to stay focused on your goals, on the things that really matter. But when you create space for silence in your life, you give yourself the opportunity to clear away the mental clutter, to focus on what's truly important. Now, let's talk about how silence can help you develop emotional intelligence. You see, in our culture, there's a lot of emphasis on IQ, on cognitive intelligence. But more and more, we're realizing that emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and to empathize with others, is just as important, if not more so. And silence is a powerful tool for developing emotional intelligence. When you're silent, when you're not caught up in the constant chatter of your own thoughts and words, you create space to tune into your emotions, to really feel what you're feeling without judgment, without trying to change or suppress it. This self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. Because when you understand your own emotions, when you're in touch with your own feelings, you're better able to understand and empathize with others. Moreover, silence gives you the opportunity to respond to situations thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. When something happens that triggers an emotional response, instead of immediately lashing out or shutting down, you can take a moment of silence. A moment to breathe, to center yourself, to choose your response consciously. This ability to pause, to create a space between stimulus and response, is a hallmark of emotional maturity. It's what allows you to navigate difficult situations with grace, to maintain your composure under pressure, to build and maintain positive relationships. And let me tell you, in both your personal and professional life, this kind of emotional intelligence is invaluable. It's what allows you to resolve conflicts constructively, to inspire and motivate others, to create a positive atmosphere around you. Now, I want to address another objection that might be coming up for some of you. You might be thinking, Jim, this all sounds great in theory, but in practice, how can I possibly find time for silence in my busy life? I have so many responsibilities, so many demands on my time and attention. And I get it. We live in a busy world. We're all juggling multiple responsibilities, multiple roles. But here's what I want you to understand. Silence isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's not something you do if you have time left over after everything else. It's something you prioritize, something you make time for, because it's essential for your well-being and success. Think about it this way. You wouldn't say you're too busy to eat or too busy to sleep, right? Because you understand that these are essential for your health and functioning. Well, I'm telling you, silence is just as essential. It's food for your soul, rest for your mind. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Even just a few minutes of intentional silence each day can make a huge difference. Maybe it's 5 minutes of meditation in the morning. Maybe it's a quiet walk on your lunch break. Maybe it's turning off the radio during your commute and just being with your thoughts. The key is to make it a habit, to build these moments of silence into your daily routine. Because remember, what you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. Now let's talk about how silence can help you develop wisdom. You see, knowledge is important, but wisdom is even more valuable. And wisdom doesn't come from accumulating more information. It comes from reflecting on your experiences, from integrating what you've learned, from seeing the deeper patterns and truths in life. And this kind of reflection, this kind of deep thinking, it requires silence. It requires time away from the constant input, the constant stimulation of the external world. Think about the wisest people you know. I bet they're not the ones who are always talking, always sharing their opinions on everything. No, the truly wise are often the quiet ones, the ones who listen more than they speak, the ones who take the time to think deeply before they offer their insights. That's because wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's about being comfortable with uncertainty, with not knowing, and silence gives you the space to sit with these questions, to ponder the mysteries of life without rushing to conclusions. When you cultivate silence in your life, you're giving yourself the opportunity to develop this kind of wisdom. You're creating space for insights to emerge, for understanding to deepen, for perspective to broaden. And let me tell you, in a world that's increasingly complex and fast-paced, this kind of wisdom is more valuable than ever. It's what allows you to navigate uncertainty with grace, to make good decisions in the face of ambiguity, to maintain your center in the midst of chaos. Now, I want to talk about something that might be uncomfortable for some of you. You see, when you first start practicing silence, when you first start turning inward, you might not like what you find. You might encounter uncomfortable emotions, unresolved issues, fears and doubts that you've been avoiding. And this is where a lot of people give up. They say, see, silence doesn't work for me. It just makes me anxious or uncomfortable. But here's what I want you to understand. This discomfort is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a sign that you're doing it right. You see, silence is like a mirror. It reflects back to you what's really going on inside. And sometimes that reflection isn't pretty, but it's necessary, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't heal what you don't face. By sitting with these uncomfortable feelings, by allowing them to surface in silence, you're taking the first step towards resolving them. This is where real growth happens. In the silence, you have the opportunity to confront your fears, to challenge your limiting beliefs, to heal old wounds. It's not always easy, but it's incredibly powerful. And as you continue to practice, as you learn to sit with the discomfort, you'll find that it begins to dissipate. The noise in your mind starts to quiet down. You begin to find a deep sense of peace and clarity that you may have never experienced before. And here's the beautiful thing. As you become more comfortable with silence, as you learn to embrace it rather than avoid it, you'll find that it becomes a source of strength and renewal. You'll start to crave those moments of silence, to look forward to them, because you'll recognize them for what they are. Opportunities for growth, for insight, for connection with your truest self. So I challenge you today. Make silence a priority in your life. Start small if you need to, but start. Create space in your day for quiet reflection. Turn off the noise, disconnect from the constant stimulation, and just be. Listen to the whispers of your heart. Pay attention to the wisdom that emerges in the stillness, and watch as your life begins to transform. Because remember, in the silence, you will find everything. Thank you.